everyone in the room? We'll get started shortly. Okay. Well, good morning. Welcome. Good morning. Welcome to the Victims of Communism Museum. I'm Tara Oh. Today, we're here to talk about the subversive threats to the Republic of Korea from anti-state forces. And we'll cover that during our panel discussion later on. But for now, I'd like to introduce a good friend, Dr. Susansolti, who's sitting right over there. Let me describe what she has done, just very briefly. She is the chairman of the North Korea Freedom Coalition. It's an organization with over 65 non-governmental organizations and individuals from around the world gathering together to help protect freedom, human rights, and dignity for North Korean people. She is also the chairman of Free North Korea Radio. It's the only defectors-run radio program that broadcasts into North Korea. It broadcasts news and information so that people can learn the truth. She's also the president of Defense Forum Foundation. She has received numerous prizes, and the list is too long, but I would like to highlight just one, which is Seoul Peace Prize, which she received in 2008 for her tireless work on human rights in North Korea. Suzanne has testified before the US Congress numerous times on various issues, including political prison camps in North Korea, the Korean, South Korean, and Japanese abductees to North Korea, POWs, South Korean POWs, who are still held in North Korea. And she also has talked about the persecution of Christians in North Korea. She received her bachelor's degree from the College of William and Mary and received an honorary doctorate degree from Kosin University in Korea. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Dr. Susansolti. Please welcome.
So I know we have a packed program, so I'm going to be really brief so you guys can hear the amazing people that are going to be speaking today. It's an honor to be able to give a few opening words because the people that you're going to hear from are awesome. But I also want to thank Tara Oh. We're very proud she's a member of our North Korea Freedom Coalition, and she's always explaining to us what the heck is going on in South Korea. We always go to Tara to find out. So I'm very proud that she's a member of our coalition, and she also has been helping Free North Korea Radio and Operation Truth, which is a program we have that's getting information and humanitarian aid to North Korea regularly. So my work, as Tara mentioned, is focused on North Korea, not South Korea, but she asked me to give you some points about this issue from the perspective of North Korea human rights advocates, because we work very closely with the North Korean defector NGOs in South Korea. And frankly, the perspective that we have as human rights advocates in South Korea, working in South Korea, is one of shock, absolute shock. And I want to give you some examples. When we first started working on conferences on North Korea human rights, Benjamin Yoon of the Citizens Alliance was the host for these international conferences. And Benjamin Yoon had been the director of Amnesty International for South Korea. He's your classic liberal Democrat. But when we would show up for these conferences where North Korean defectors were going to talk about what was happening in North Korea, whether it was political prisoner camps, whether it was trafficking of North Korean women, whether it was about South Korean POWs that are still being held, there were young people protesting against these conferences. And it was shocking to see this. These are young people that should have been promoting awareness of the horrors that were happening in North Korea. So this was something that was shocking to us because in America, liberals and conservatives, Democrats and Republicans are all united in advocating for the North Korea human rights issues. But it didn't take us too long to realize that liberal Democrats in South Korea are not classic liberal Democrats. They are pro-communist, pro-Kim regime advocates. And I want to give you another example. Justice Michael Kirby, a classic liberal Democrat, after he chaired the UN Commission of Inquiry on North Korea human rights and found there were unspeakable crimes against humanity happening that had no parallel in the world, he was shocked that the left in South Korea not only was ignoring these issues, but was actually supporting the Kim regime. It was something he could not understand. All this was really brought to head during the Moon administration, because during the sunshine years of Roe and DJ Kim, I call them the darkest days, because the sunshine years was a suppression of what was happening to the North Korean people. And when Moon was elected, I want to cite a couple of things that happened during the Moon administration. Moon was more focused during his presidency in preserving the Kim Jong-un dictatorship than in promoting South Korea's liberal democracy. Moon launched an aggressive campaign at the direct orders of Kim Jong-un and Kim Yo-jong to cut off the very successful projects that the North Korean defectors were doing to get information in. I contend we were winning the information campaign. North Koreans were far more aware of the truth of their circumstances than ever before. And so Moon set out to shut down all these programs. He enacted an anti-leafleting law, which is unconstitutional. It violates South Korea's constitution. It also violates their international treaty obligations. And he enacted this anti-leafleting law because he wanted to block all the information campaigns that were being run. He was getting ready to move on the radios to try to block the radios as well. He also forcefully repatriated North Korean refugees, and he tried to cover it up. But this is a horrible story about two fishermen who were trying to get asylum and trying to defect, and he forced them back. They were likely tortured and executed. We don't know their fate, but we pretty certainly were executed. He also cut off support for the North Korean settlement programs, basically the safety net that was there, because most North Koreans suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, having escaped from that evil place. So he cut off the support. A mother and son starved to death in Seoul. They fell through that safety net because there was no support for these resettlement organizations. Also, he did something that didn't even happen during the sunshine years of Roe and DJ Kim. He cut off support for all the defector NGOs, including the Committee for the Democratization of North Korea. The Committee for the Democratization of North Korea was founded by Hwang Jan-yap, and their funds were also cut off, something that DJ Kim and Roe didn't do. Because of this, he awakened the North Korean people more than anyone else had ever done, the Moon administration. For them, the election between Yoon and Lee was to them life or death. They believed that if Lee got elected, it was going to threaten their lives, so they worked their hearts out, and I contend the 36,000 North Korean escapees living in South Korea were what gave Yoon the margin of victory to win the closest presidential race in South Korean's history. Because of this, there was an awakening of the coming together of all the North Korean defectors that I've never seen before, having worked with them for 30 years, how united they were in fighting for the freedom of South Korea's republic, because nobody knows best, nobody understands more than those who have suffered under communism. And now we're at that same point. It's life or death for the Republic of Korea. And we need to be aware that when we talk about the liberals and the Democrats in South Korea, we are talking about pro-communist, pro-Kim actors who have put South Korea in an extremely dangerous place right now. It is a matter of life or death for the Republic of Korea. So it's my honor to give you those opening thoughts, because you're going to hear some powerful testimony from people that have been following this issue. So thank you very much. Thank you, Tara. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that insight, Suzanne. I'd like to introduce one more person before we start the panel, and that is Lee Jin-soo. He is the Vice President of Truth Forum. He received his both bachelor's and MBA from Seoul National University. And at the same time as Vice President for Truth Forum, he is actually very involved in something that has been created recently. He is the spokesperson for Save Korea National Emergency Prayer Gathering. Again, people are fighting the tyranny right now, and so he is part of that organization that is doing that. Just quickly, in the past, he has been the chief of staff for a lawmaker at the National Assembly, and he was also the founder of the Word News, which is a smaller news outlet because legacy media is not covering much of this stuff, so he helped spread the words by finding this. Without further ado, Jin-Soo.
As a Vice President of Truth Forum, I will introduce what we are doing here. Political views may differ, but we believe that everyone shares a fundamental desire for truth. This truth is our guiding light, one that has the power to heal divisions, restore our nation, and move it forward. I am Jin-Soo Lee, Vice President of Truth Forum. Truth Forum is South Korea's first youth-led conservative organization, actively championing conservative values in an overwhelmingly liberal environment. Our organization is led by President David Eun-gu Kim, who founded Truth Forum at Seoul National University in 2017. Truth Forum is guided by the biblical principle, the truth will set you free, John 8:32. We uphold 5 core values. 1, appreciation of the foundation of the Republic of Korea. 2, liberation of North Korea. 3, strong ROK-US alliance. 4, understanding the crisis facing the Republic of Korea. 5, Christian conservatism based on the Judeo-Christian worldview. Since its inception, the forum has grown into South Korea's leading conservative organization, advocating for key principles, including pro-life, pro-family, pro-freedom, pro-market, pro-Korea, pro-North Korea human rights, pro-Israel, and a strong ROK-US alliance. In addition, Truth Forum has launched Students for Israel in South Korea to counter the growing pro-Hamas movement and rising anti-Semitism on university campuses. Regardless of religious affiliation, Truth Forum welcomes all who share our 5 core values. Our goal is to develop into a think tank that shapes policy, fosters meaningful discussions, and cultivates the next generation of leaders across various sectors of society. Through today's seminar, we hope to expose the true nature of communism, which continues to threaten us. Seungman Rhee, the founding father and first president of the Republic of Korea, cherished Galatians 5:1 as his favorite Bible verse. As the verse states, we hope that we will no longer be yoked to slavery, but that we will stand firm and share in the blessings of freedom together. Thank you.
Down a little bit because I'm a little bit shorter. Everyone had the heels on and I should have probably taken point. But I'm Karina Lipsman and I'm the head of government relations here at VOC. Thank you all so much for being here this morning. Thank you, Dr. Tara O. Thank you, Dr. Solti. And thank you, Mr. Jin-Soo, for the opening remarks. And now I would like to turn our attention to our panel discussion, which is titled Subversion Threats to the Republic of Korea, Anti-State Forces, North Korea, and the Chinese Communist Party. And to moderate this panel, I would like to introduce Dr. Nicholas Eberstad, the Henry Wendt Chair in Political Economy at the American Enterprise Institute, where he researches and writes extensively on international security in the Korean Peninsula and Asia, demographics and economic development. So with that, please, Dr. Eberstad.
you so much. I'm Nick Eberstadt of American Enterprise Institute. More importantly, I'm a founding director of the U.S. Committee for Human Rights in North Korea, along with my emerita here, Dr. Solti. Can I ask for our panelists to come up to our dais here? Let me be very brief with some opening remarks on this. There are two civil wars going on in the Korean Peninsula today. One, of course, we're quite familiar with. This is the civil war between North and South Korea for the unfinished unification of the country. But there's also a civil war going on within the ROK between the enemies of the open society and those who are trying to preserve constitutional democracy. It is remarkable that this struggle in South Korea receives so little attention in the international media today. I don't quite understand why this momentous struggle attracts so little attention from the international media. I can guess that one reason may be that many of the correspondents don't actually know or understand what is going on in this often subterranean conflict. Another possibility may be that some aren't interested in it. The third, of course, is that some of the correspondents are actually undeclared combatants struggling in this conflict without telling their readership. We have an occasion for a truth broadcast in our panel today that you here in our audience at the Victims of Communism Foundation and our international viewers may be able to learn a little bit more about the truth of what is going on in this struggle in South Korea today. I think maybe what I should do is simply mention the names rather than the eminent backgrounds of our speakers, Dr. Tara Oh, Mr. Gordon Chung, and Mr. David Eun-ho Kim. I'm going to basically just be a traffic cop here, a time cop, and I'm going to try to keep our speakers who could tell us hours worth of stories and analysis on this situation to just 15 minutes each. So we'll have a little bit of time for discussion afterwards and questions from the audience. So thank you very much for your attention. And Dr. Oh, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you again. Good morning. Since I have more than 15 minutes worth of things to say, I'll get right to it. There was martial law on December 3rd last year, and soon President Yoon Suk-yeol was impeached. And can we have the first slide, please? But as you can see from the slide, a lot of South Koreans support President Yoon. So how can this be? If he did something wrong, why do so many South Koreans support him? So let's get into it. But let me start with the bottom line up front. The martial law was legal because the Constitution gives the president the authority to declare martial law. So don't let anybody else tell you that that's not the case. It's legal. Number two, it was not an insurrection by the president. If anything, it was an insurrection by the National Assembly, which is dominated by the Democratic Party of Korea. And the reason why I'm saying that is because they have weaponized the National Assembly. And I will talk about this in detail later. And it appears now that some of the apparatus of the government, such as the judiciary, the police, the CIO, which has some investigative authority, not all. CIO stands for Corruption Investigation Office for High-Ranking Officials. This is a relatively new organization. But through them, they are really essentially helping to break down the rule of law. And they seem to be working for the Democratic Party of Korea. DPK. Now, DPK is pro-CCP, pro-Chinese Communist Party. It is pro-North Korea. technology. Okay, so pro-North Korea, the Communist Party there, which is Korean Workers' Party. And I will show you all the details of this. But that's the bottom line. So let's step back and look at the martial law. Again, it was declared on December 3rd, last year, 2024, at 10:30 p.m. President Yoon went on, he actually declared this publicly at 10:30. And he sent a portion of the martial law troops to the National Assembly, which has been reported in the media widely. But they actually did not arrive there until 1 hour and a half later, which was around midnight. Now, around 10:33, so only a few minutes after he declared martial law, the martial law troops actually went to the National Election Commission, the NEC. And the NEC is located elsewhere and has the headquarters in one place, it has training center somewhere else. But actually more troops went there, 297, versus the ones who were sent to the National Assembly, 280. And by 1 a.m. they withdrew. They withdrew because at 1 a.m. the National Assembly, led by Speaker Woo Won-shik, who recently visited Xi Jinping, they passed a resolution 1920. So 190 of the lawmakers were in the building. Nobody was stopped. They were able to get in. And they passed a resolution demanding the lifting of the martial law, and President Yoon then followed suit. He lifted it, 5:40 a.m. So this was about 6 hours. So world's shortest martial law. So he did this, but why? Why did he do this? And that is a more important question. And he actually explained his reason for this in his speech on December 3rd. And let me, next slide, please. Okay, well, actually, I'm going to explain this. I talked about DPK being pro-CCP. This is in Beijing. It's the 100th anniversary of the founding of Chinese Communist Party. So all these Communist Party flags around the world are displayed here. And guess what? There's a flag of the Democratic Party of Korea. It's circled. It's written in Korean. It's a Tobura Minjudang. It's in Korean. So why is that flag doing here? Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is Lee Jae-myung that Dr. Schulte mentioned earlier. Lee Jae-myung on the left, and Jin Hai-ming, who was the ambassador to Korea back then. So he basically went to see him. But as you can see from the posture, you can tell who's subservient to whom. And Lee Jae-myung, he is not subservient to anybody in South Korea. But this is what he's displaying in front of the Chinese ambassador. Okay, next slide, please. And what's interesting about this is the map of Korea. Why is half of South Korea the same color as North Korea? So again, these are all signs of their, well, pro-CCP and pro-North Korea leaning, which I will, again, talk about in more detail later. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so going back to why President Yoon declared martial law, and this is what he said. And I'll just read off. I actually highlighted the part myself. But it says, I declare martial law in order to defend free Republic of Korea from the threat of communist forces of North Korea, to eradicate all the unscrupulous anti-state, pro-North Korea forces who are plundering the freedom and happiness of our people, and to protect the constitutional order based on freedom. So he talks about defending freedom over and over and over. Okay? He also said, and this is another quote, the National Assembly, which should be the foundation of Korea's democracy, has become a monster that is destroying the free democratic system. Okay, and let me, one more quote. He describes this as the anti-state act of plotting and insurrection. So he was saying that they are plotting the insurrection. It's not the president. And he criticized the legislative dictatorship of anti-state forces. Let me tell you why he said that. Well, the DPK-dominated National Assembly seems to favor impeachment as a tool. prior to martial law, the DPK initiated 22 impeachment proceedings. So it just didn't start after he declared martial law. It already started when President Yoon's presidency began, which is May 2022. And in the 6 months prior to the declaration of martial law, DPK tried to impeach 10 government officials. And that includes the defense minister, the Minister of Interior and Safety, the chairman of the KCC, Korea Communications Commission, in fact, many of them actually, and chairman of the Board of Audit and Inspection. Also prosecutors, and they also threatened judges. Let me talk a little bit about the prosecutors that they impeached or introduced impeachment resolutions against. And again, once the impeachment is passed, their duty stops. Whether they're proven guilty or not, their duty stops right away. So these prosecutors, what were they doing? So they were investigating Lee Jae-myung on so many corruption charges and related charges that would eventually lead to him being investigated. So one of them is when Lee Jae-myung was governor of Gyeonggi province, his deputy, his lieutenant governor, Lee Hwa-young, he went to China. He went to China, met with a North Korean official, gave him $8 million. That's a sanctions violation. Why? Because he wanted Kim Jong-un in North Korea to agree to a summit with Lee Jae-myung. So that's one. And also, he wanted the Gyeonggi province to set up a business in North Korea. Again, both of these are sanctions violations. US sanctions violations, UN sanctions violations, as well as Korean law. So that's why he was being investigated, among other things. Now, what else? These prosecutors were also investigating former officials under Moon Jae-in, Chung Il-yong, Seo-hun, and some others. And what were they responsible for? Well, many things. They're the ones who came to the United States constantly and said, Kim Jong-un has a will to denuclearize, which was a total lie, but that's what they did, and they tried to affect US foreign policy that way. But remember that Dr. Solti talked about those 2 fishermen defectors who were forcibly returned to North Korea against their will, likely to their death. Well, they were the decision makers, so they were found guilty. So the next thing the prosecutors would have done is to investigate Moon Jae-in. So they didn't want that, so they impeached them to stop them from investigating. So this is what they have been doing. And that's not the only thing. They also, because they hold the budget, they drastically cut various budgets. And when it comes to, there's something called Special Activity Fund, which actually is given to a lot of different entities, including the National Assembly. But the ones that were designed for the White House, or not the White House now, but the President's office. The President's office, the police, the prosecutors, and the Inspector General, they're all cut to 0. So they wanted to hamstring them. And when it comes to some other important budgets, they cut that drastically. So, for example, one is to give raise to the military, particularly to the junior officers and NCOs, non-commissioned officers. Why? Because Moon Jae-in gave huge raises to the conscripts who are in for less than 18 months. So you have a situation where the conscript's salary is pretty much the same as the NCOs who are above them and the junior officers. And that is detrimental to the morale and discipline of the military. That destroys the military. But DPK doesn't care. In fact, they would love it if the Korean military is destroyed. So something like, so they did that. They also reduced budget for things like countering drugs. So when we are talking about countering drugs, we're talking about drugs like fentanyl from China. At the same time, they gave themselves a raise, of course, and they increased budget for their pet projects, including solar panel promotions. And we know where solar panels are made in China. So this is not the only actions that they took that benefits China. There's some other ones. So the Chinese nationals were spying on a U.S. aircraft carrier docked in Busan. That was last year. They were also spying on military installations. They were spying on the NIS, National Intelligence Service, which is like the CIA headquarters. They were caught, but nothing happened to them because currently there is no law in South Korea which allows them to prosecute Chinese spies. That's ridiculous, but that's the current situation. And when President Yoon tried to address that by amending the law, DPK adamantly opposed and they blocked it. And
About 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Oh, okay. Well, okay. Let me. Okay. So I want to talk about the election issues real quickly. So they're able to do this legislative dictatorship because they had huge victories in 2020 and 2024 elections. So basically, they have this enough majority where they can pass any laws that they want, except to change the constitution and to impeach the president. But they're able to recently impeach the president because some of the people within the president's own party, People Power Party, betrayed him. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so again, people say that there's election fraud because they're seeing something like this. These are not natural ballots. The stiff ballots are not natural ballots. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Do you see that empty? This is not marked, but it's sorted. Using the machine, it's sorted to candidate 1, which is the DPK candidate. Okay, next slide, please. So so they try to hide this, yet the Stop the Steal, this book has become the bestseller recently because people are waking up. So this martial law, what that is doing is it woke people up. They're looking for this information, and then they're realizing that the election fraud is a big issue. The next slide, please. Okay, since I don't have time to get into all the details about the election issue, this is a North Korean leaflet that was found in the trash balloon recently, and it says right there, the only way for people to survive is to impeach Yoon Suk-yeol. This is like North Korea giving instructions to those forces in South Korea to impeach him. The next slide, please. Okay, so these are all the people that are impeached in the executive branch since the martial law. This is what they did. They are attacking and paralyzing the executive branch. This is what the Democratic Party of Korea is doing, weaponizing the National Assembly. Okay, next slide, please. So let's keep going through, again, all this: Save Korea, Stop the Steal, support U.S. ROC Alliance, pro-U.S. Next slide. In different places. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. They want China out because they know China's behind this. Next slide. This is just comparison. The one above, pro-U.S., anti-impeachment, and then down here at the bottom, hardly any support. Okay, next slide. You see, this is a pro-impeachment, but there's Palestinian flag, there's rainbow flag. That's not Korean flag. They colored it. Okay, so this is there's some global force that's part of this movement that is trying to impeach Yoon Suk-yeol and destroy freedom of South Korea. Next slide, please. Again, this happened in December, and it says tear down U.S. military, which is behind the insurrection. Again, this is not an ordinary force. Okay, next slide, please. And they tried to block. The police put this bus wall, but people still got through. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is when they lay down to prevent the illegal CIO from trying to arrest President Yoon, which again, it was very illegal. This is what the police did. This is very unusual for South Korean police, usually very, very nice. They're very nice and cordial. This is what something like CCP's police would do. You saw this movement in Hong Kong. But this is not the only one, but this is what's happening in South Korea. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide, since I don't have that much time. So Constitutional Court justices, these 8 people, they are going to decide on the fate of South Korea. They're going to determine whether they are going to reject or accept the National Assembly's impeachment. And how much time do I have? 0? Okay. Let's say one thing. A lot of these constitutional justices are left-leaning, very heavily left. In fact, let me quickly say, Moon Hyung-bae, the one on top left, he is the acting justice, acting chief justice. He's close to Lee Jae-myung, and he was recently discovered that he was part of an online group that shared porn, 2,000 of them. And he discovered this during the impeachment hearing, so they had to take a break, and it was extended The break was extended because he was too busy deleting his online comments that linked to him. I mean, it was extremely embarrassing. Okay, so in conclusion, we have the situation where one party is dominating Korea, South Korea. There's a lawfare. There's no free and fair election in South Korea. But next slide, please. This is what people are afraid of. This is what people are fighting. This communist forces of China and CCP and Democratic Party of Korea and Korean Workers' Party. This is what they're fighting. The next slide. This is the last slide. So people are out there fighting for their freedom. They are pro-US, pro-alliance with the United States, and they're doing what they can. And we should help our ally, the Republic of Korea, help them preserve our shared values. Thank you.
That was a tour de force. Thank you very much. Gordon, the floor is yours.
Well, thanks, Nick. And good morning, Freedom Warriors. Lydia and I are just so proud to be here with you, standing shoulder to shoulder in a great cause. The Communist Party of China owns the Democratic Party of Korea, Minju. Now, senior Minju leaders, former President Moon Jae-in, current criminal and leader of Minju, Lee Jae-myung, they act as if they're living in the 7th century when large portions of Korea were ruled by the Tang dynasty of China. And that means Moon and Yi and many others in Minju, they believe that they're vassals of the Chinese state, the grand celestial court, as we saw from Tara's pictures. Those images clearly demonstrate the mentality of Minju leaders. This is important because we're living in the 21st century, and in the 21st century, Minju is allowing China to infiltrate the Republic of Korea. And we'll start in 2019. In 2019, we first started to hear reports of concerns about election integrity, about the integrity of the system run by the National Election Commission. Now, the NEC dismissed these concerns, said there was no possibility of fraud, said their system couldn't be hacked. Well, the North Koreans hacked that system many times. The National Intelligence Service of South Korea, the spies, they were given the test to see if they could hack the system, and they did so. But nonetheless, NEC would not budge. And that had consequences, because on April 15th, 2020, the National Assembly elections, the balloting resulted in an unexpected and overwhelming victory for Minju leaders, as early ballots tipped district after district to the leftists. There were so many uniformly narrow victories that it was statistically improbable. And indeed, one expert looked at this and said, either God did it or the election was rigged. Well, let me give you a spoiler alert. God didn't do it. What we saw were counterfeit ballots, there were chain of custody issues, and there were throughput voting speeds that were not humanly possible. The NEC destroyed evidence, and they refused to hear challenges. And indeed, they even filed charges against people who said, raised the possibility of fraud. They even filed charges against people who were urging people not to vote early. What does all of this have to do with China? Well, we saw two things that were extremely suspicious. First of all, the National Election Committee uses servers from Huawei Technologies of China. And throughout the last decade or so, we've seen more and more evidence that China has been able to control those servers remotely from Beijing. But also, there were reports that Minju actually cooperated with Tencent, the Chinese internet giant, to develop algorithms to switch votes from early votes to the final election. And that is how we saw all of these election irregularities. The election irregularities continued to 2 years later, 2022. Fortunately, Yoon Suk-yeol, the president, People Power Party, he was elected, but he was elected by a much smaller margin than polling indicated. And the reason is that early ballots delivered late eroded his margin. Unfortunately, there was no serious investigation of this. And again, 2 years after that, 2024, the second National Assembly election, there was again an overwhelming victory for Minju leaders that polling said did not exist. Now, you can have one election where the polling and ballot results are off, but what we have seen in South Korea this decade is election after election where the polling and the ballot results are so far apart. And that says that God didn't intervene, that this indeed was fraud. We are also seeing, of course, the National Election Commission this year admitted that they've been hiring Chinese nationals to count ballots in South Korea's elections. How could this be? Well, it's not just, of course, the Chinese infiltration of the South Korean election system. It is also an infiltration of society as a whole. Our friend David Maxwell of the Center for Asia-Pacific Strategy says China's actions in South Korea have been covert. And so therefore, sometimes it is hard to find evidence of it. But he says there are clear signs that the Chinese have been infiltrating South Korean society. And that's because of Minju's permission to do that. So for instance, China's conducting a campaign against the United States, all other countries, and South Korea. It's part of their unrestricted warfare campaign. And that, you have the three warfares: psychological warfare, legal warfare, and media warfare. And they are all being conducted in South Korea today. China in the Republic of Korea has got its Confucius Institutes. Even more damaging, they are in the secondary schools of South Korea, getting young South Koreans to adopt pro-China, pro-North Korean narratives. China's been targeting senior South Korean officials, and of course, it's using Chinese-linked entities to take stakes in Korean media outlets, something that we've also seen in other countries like Taiwan. The Communist Party's United Front Work Department, which is the part of the ruling organization that subverts foreign governments, have been developing relations with these quote-unquote friendship organizations, so many of them, especially about 5 of them in South Korea. This infiltration has been so bad that in 2017, it is believed that China established a secret police station in Seoul. As Tara just told us, the Speaker of the Assembly, he went to Beijing on February 5, and in 2023, as Tara talks about, 102 National Assembly legislators signed agreements with China's Communist Party. And by the way, these were not just Minju legislators. These were also legislators from the People Power Party. So really what we have is an infiltration of the 2 main political groups in South Korea. In the early impeachment rallies, which Tara showed you, in the beginning, in early December, right after the declaration of martial law, there were a lot of Chinese faces in these pro-impeachment rallies. When it became an issue in South Korea, when their presence became an issue, they suddenly disappeared. How did that happen? As Tara showed you in one of those images, there are now South Korean policemen, no name tags, acting violently in a way that we have not seen in South Korea. This mimics what we saw in Hong Kong in 2019, a Chinese communist tactic. And so we have to worry that China is now more influential in South Korea than the ruling party. Now, these unusual events bring us back to the way the Chinese view the world. They view South Koreans, Koreans in general, as inferior. You shouldn't feel too bad because they feel that way about everybody else in the world. The difference is, in other countries around the world, leaders say, no, we don't accept that. But in South Korea, as Tara said, they do. And when leaders accept the dominance of China in South Korea, it's possible they will not defend their society against China and against North Korea. So we have seen these unusual events in the last couple months, and we've got to be concerned. Because what this means is that we have a Minju leader, a criminal, Lee Jae-myung. He's a more socialist, more pro-North Korea, more ruthless, more pro-China, and anti-alliance, more anti-American version of Moon Jae-in, the prior president. Right. And what that means is, especially if Yoon Suk-yeol is removed and there's an election and Yi is elected, then we may see the end of the South Korean state. I know that that's hard to accept, but the only way it's not going to end is if you and others take to the streets and raise your voices. Because right now, everything's at risk. Freedom is at risk, democracy is at risk, the Republic of Korea is at risk. Question: where is the front line of freedom in the world today? The front line of freedom in the world today is the streets of Seoul and other cities in South Korea, where people are standing up and they're letting their voices be heard, not only in South Korea, but around the world. So saving South Korea is saving freedom. And we must all do what they say in that banner: save Korea. Thank you very much.
Gordon, thank you for that disturbing but also rousing assessment of the situation in the ROK today. David, can you please take the floor?
Hello, everyone. I'm glad and honored to be here together with such a prominent guest and speakers. Let me shortly tell you my story. In my late 30s, I went back to university to finish my PhD, but more importantly, to fight the fight against the lies of socialism and communism, postmodernism and cultural Marxism. Even though we may be meeting for the first time here today, I believe we have been fighting the same fight together. Before diving into today's topic, let me first introduce the backgrounds of the anti-state forces in South Korea. Next slide, please. Ideas have consequences. Let me ask you a question. Why human beings should be treated with dignity? It's a simple question, but I cannot find another answer but the Word of God. The very concept of individual dignity actually comes from the Judeo-Christian worldview. In contrast, under Marxist historical materialism, sacrificing on individual for the sake of historical progress becomes not only acceptable but inevitable. Next slide, please. The United States of America and the Republic of Korea share many similarities because South Korea was founded following the example of the United States. Not just its political system, but more importantly, in its Judeo-Christian worldview. Since South Korea was modeled after the US, the problems you have here in the US often happen in the same way in South Korea. Socialist and communist revolutionaries influenced by postmodernism and Marxism have used democracy to spread their ideas and seize power in society. And the Democrats have moved to the left, and legacy media hides the truth and spread leftist agenda. And the left has fallen into a destructive view of history. The left in America claims that the United States was built on the blood of slaves. Meanwhile, the left in South Korea argues that South Korea was founded by pro-Japan factions under the influence of the imperialist America. This is the foundation of anti-American sentiment in South Korea. It also fuels pro-North sentiment, pushing the illusion that North Korea, despite being poor, is a truly independent nation, free from foreign influence. The sad fact is that this is the view of South Korea's Democratic Party, which currently has the majority in the parliament. In 2023, Lee Jae-myung, who remained the leader of the Democratic Party in South Korea, appointed Lee Dae-kyung as the chair of the Innovation Committee. Lee Dae-kyung, who supports the theory of the other 100 years, claims that foreign powers controlled South Korea's history after the March 1st movement in the 1919, making it forced and shameful. He insists that Korea must create a new 100 years. For South Korea's homegrown socialist, the May 18 uprising in 1980 was an attempt to overthrow the system and start a socialist revolution through an internal rebellion. When this failed, doubts grew about whether a homegrown revolution was possible, and this led to the rise of the Juche faction, Jusapa, which believed they need North Korea's help to achieve their revolution. In that sense, it's ironic and even bitter that novelist Han Gang, who glorified May 18 incident, won a Nobel Prize. Next slide, please. For those dreaming of a socialist revolution, China is even more appealing and powerful than North Korea. To them, China, armed with massive capital, represents the hope of socialism strong enough to challenge the US. The rise in trade between South Korea and China has become a tool for the Chinese Communist Party to expand its influence across Korean society. Even for those who are not socialist, revolutionaries, China's culture of bribery and under-the-table deal is a gold mine for South Korea's corrupt opportunists. The CCP is distorting public opinion in South Korea, even running online troll armies to manipulate discussions. In 2024, South Korea's National Intelligence Service identified hundreds of Chinese websites disguised as South Korean domestic media outlets. Shockingly, Seoul National University, a symbol of South Korea's intellectual elite, even has a Xi Jinping reference room. Can you imagine? Yet, we don't even have a reference room for our own leaders. It's nonsense. While the public is alarmed by China's silent invasion, politicians remain silent. Furthermore, South Korean Democrats, including former President Moon Jae-in, have openly praised China's dream. In 2021, as Tara mentioned, a Democratic Party's flag was displayed at China's Communist Party's 100th anniversary celebration. China's state-run broadcaster, CCTV, has openly expressed support for Lee Jae-myung, the current leader of South Korea's Democratic Party. This evidence is why people worry about China's control over South Korea. Next slide, please. Many people were shocked when President Yoon Suk-yeol suddenly declared martial law. However, as time passed, it became clear that the reason behind it was to investigate election fraud. And people began to suspect ties between China and the Democratic Party. People also began to realize the Democratic Party's wrongdoing, as they had effectively paralyzed the administration by cutting essential budgets and abusing impeachment powers. Over the past 2 years, the Democratic Party has filed 29 impeachment motions. In comparison, over the 249 years of US history, how many do you know? How many impeachment motions do you think there was? 62 impeachment cases, which means one impeachment case in 5 years. So currently, anti-impeachment protests far outnumber pro-impeachment protests. But the left-leaning media is not reporting this properly. Meanwhile, South Korea's Constitutional Court, which is handling the impeachment trial, is dominated by judges from the leftist group, Our Law Research Association. The clear bias seen during the trial raises serious concerns about whether fair judgment is even possible. Furthermore, evidence is emerging that the entire impeachment crisis was orchestrated by Democratic Party, including false testimony from key witnesses. Next slide, please. Why the US must pay attention to South Korea? Some people see Donald Trump, as an isolationist, but I think his focus on domestic issues is a necessary step to make America great again. It is about restoring the country from postmodernism, Marxism, bureaucratic overreach, and warmongers who push unnecessary wars. Rebuilding broken worlds isn't about ignoring global issues. It's about getting things in order first. So the US need to recognize what's happening in South Korea and respond accordingly. If the values of freedom do not expand, totalitarianism will take over. If South Korea falls under China's control, I believe so will America. President, next slide, please. Yeah. President Seung-man Rhee said in his speech to the US Congress in 1954, unless we win back China, ultimate victory for the free world is unthinkable. It was prophetic insight, looking 70 years into the future. The battle between truth and lies in South Korea will not end until North Korea, the root of all deception in the country, collapses and China becomes free. This is an inevitable fight. The ROC-US alliance still has an unfinished mission: liberating North Korea and bring freedom to China. That is the ultimate victory we must fight together. Thank you.
That was a splendid presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I think in the last few minutes you've learned more about the current realities of struggle for freedom in South Korea than you could get from a month's worth of reading the English language media. I'm going to use my prerogative as moderator to ask each of our panelists a question related to these presentations. Let me just ask the three questions and ask you to respond if you would. David, can you please tell our audience and our internet viewers who is Lee Jae-myung? They may not know this in the United States. What does he believe in? If he becomes president, as may happen after an impeachment, if it is successful, what will his policies be for South Korea, and what will his international policies be?
Yeah.
One question for you. For Tara, let me ask you this. Was martial law a mistake? This is a devil's advocate question. The devil's advocate might argue that the Democratic Party was on the ropes with the trial of Mr. Lee Jae-myung, and if he had been convicted of basically treason, have discredited his entire movement. So, as you look back on this, letting things proceed through the court system as they might have occurred versus making this move, how do you weigh this in pros and cons? And Gordon, you're an eminent journalist, and you face the same difficulties that I do in trying to look for English language media to learn about the truth and realities in South Korea today. Where do you go? I mean, can you tell people where you should go, what you should read? So, David, let me ask you to start, then Tara, then Gordon.
Yeah, thank you for a nice question. Lee Jae-myung is, as you may know, is the current opposition party leader, the Democratic Party leader. As I understand him, he's a perfect opportunist. Rather than a socialist, I think he's an opportunist. And it was very impressive that he was lecturing in front of a young generation, and there was lots of jokes, and he even encouraged them to lie in certain situations that when they have some problem. So I think it shows his character, and he was in a sense a successful politician. He was a city mayor of Seongnam, and Seongnam-si and the city of Seongnam is nowadays is the center of the problem, center of the attention, because there was lots of corruption cases, including Daejangdong development cases, and which is actually endangering Lee Jae-myung's political situation. And what is more important is that he allied with certain kind of gangsters in the city, and the anti-state forces related with North Korea, 경기 동부연합, which is anti-state forces related with former progressive United Progressive Party, which is dissolved by the decision of Constitutional Court. And the problem is that he's keep cooperating with them and taking the people from them and putting them into the parliament. And most of his main personnel is from those groups. So I feel like he's one of the most dangerous guy in South Korea. And there are lots of corruption cases around him, and he's getting through lots of criminal trials. But the problem is that many people already have died. 6, 7 people has been through suspicious death. So this explains, I think, everything about his nature. Thank you.
So, yes, if he didn't declare martial law, wouldn't the courts have just taken care of the situation, and Lee Jae-myung would have ended up in jail? And if he went to jail, or if he received jail sentence, or 1 million won, which is like slightly less than $1,000 in fine, then he can't run for public office for a certain duration. But they were not going to let that happen. That's why they kept on impeaching the prosecutors. That's why they kept on threatening the judges. And even now, his court cases are delayed. They're delayed and delayed. I mean, it's been going on for like, 5 years or so, when this impeachment trial is moving at a breakneck speed. So he can delay this forever, threaten, change, swap people out. A lot of people around him, the key witnesses, have mysteriously died. So I don't think that's a good bet. And right now what we're seeing with the court is that they are biased, they're bought. They're not upholding the rule of law, they're not protecting the Constitution. So because that's already the situation with the court, we cannot rely on the court to do what is right. So by doing this declaration of martial law, again, he woke people up. So more people are digging and discovering the truth, which is the beginning of anything, any activity that's meaningful. And they know that their freedom is at stake. And again, you can't have people fighting for the freedom if they don't know that their freedom is under threat. So now people are realizing that. So I think in that sense, it serves its purpose.
Thank you, Tara.
And it's legal.
Thank you. Gordon?
Well, Nick, you asked me, where do I find out about South Korea? Well, that's the easiest question in the world because I just call up Tara. And I call up others as well. You know, David Maxwell, which I talked about, Lawrence Peck, on North Korea, which has relevance, of course, to South Korea. Susan, you know, Dr. Schulte, David, Bruce Bechtel, and so many others. But here, this is the problem, though, in that there are so many different voices, and you have to try to get all of them. And so when people call me up and say that I'm 100% wrong, I do listen to them, and I do try to engage with them because it's important that we all understand the other side. Of course, there's other media, that there is plenty of Korean media in English, which we look at. And there is Twitter X, where there are so many different voices on South Korea. So what we end up with is a mosaic. And that really is the predicament that we have. But I also know that ultimately, this does boil down to an issue of good versus evil. And we have good people in the back with that banner, and we have good people throughout this audience. And we find encouragement from everyone. So this is, for us, a very important issue. It's critical because, as we've just heard from David, that this is where the freedom of the world lies, is going to be decided. So that's where we try to find out.
Thank you, Gordon, and thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. Please join me in thanking our panel for a splendid discussion and presentation. Yeah, sure. We've got time for a few questions. May I gather 2 or 3 questions, and then we'll leave it. Do we have time for this? Oh, we wanted to tell them. I thought it was going to be.
I think we have like 5 minutes for questions and then
All right.
Okay, 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Yes. Let me get 3 questions. The lady in the front, the gentleman on the side, and the lady in the back. Would you please identify yourselves and ask a succinct question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Ok Jae-seo from Korea U.S. National Prayer Breakfast, and thank you for the wonderful, as usual, the presentation, all of you. 2 quick questions. One, I wonder why, and many American people ask me, what is happening to your country? And I cannot keep on explaining, so that's number 1 question. Number 2, what is your perspective of present administrations? How do you think deal with the South Korea situation? That's a very big question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then we have a question over here. Gentlemen.
Thank you very much. I am a correspondent for the Asia Today, South Korea, fear of a conservative news outlet. And my question goes to Great Gordon Chang. According to President Trump 3 days ago at CPAC closing speech, and also goes to Dr. Moderator, because he's also a great scholar. It's related to the whole questions. or there are some options of how do you suggest some option Trump administration can help saving South Korea and deter the trial of impeachment of President Yoon. Thank you.
Hi, I think we all have the same type of questions because of the situation in South Korea is very time sensitive. As President Trump has mentioned Mr. Gordon Chang during his CPAC speech, and he asked you specifically how he is doing on China. And we would like to know if you have any plans in few days or few weeks before the final decision of impeachment trial comes out. Do you have any plan to meet with President administration or with President Trump to discuss about the situation in Korea and really talk about the situation is very severe and we really need U.S. help?
In the interest of time, and I'm concerned that we may be approaching upon the students' time, may I ask each of you just to address a single question out of the many that were asked. So let's just go through the panel. David, Gordon, Tara, please.
Let me just short mention about the problem of media. Media is left-leaning, just like the United States. And you know what? The leftists, they cooperate by default. Socialist international, communist international, it has been their tradition. And most of the foreign correspondents and Korean reporters in South Korea who studied in the U.S. tend to be leaning left. So in a sense, they are cooperating by default. So so that's the reason why American people cannot hear from the grassroots of South Korea. That is my understanding.
I think the most important thing that the Trump administration can do, and this is a difficult situation for the United States, because it doesn't want to be seen as interfering in the internal affairs of another country. But the one thing that we can do, and what the president, I believe, should do, is publicly declare that the United States and the rest of the world is watching the impeachment proceedings and hopes that the outcome will be decided fairly and based on South Korean law. As we saw from one of Tara's slides, people say, well, the United States was behind the martial law declaration, which is absolutely ridiculous. But it shows you the mentality of many, and that message does actually resonate in South Korea, unfortunately, even though it is completely untrue. So the United States needs to speak out on this so that people in South Korea know the world is watching, but I think that there's a limit to what we can actually accomplish. And with regard to what I can do, I can continue to write and speak on this. And hope that somebody in the administration listens. But I will do my best.
Thank you.
Okay. One more thought, media. Why isn't the media covering this? The media has not been covering the truth about South Korea for the past 8 years at least. But I think in the US media, I think a lot of it comes from the Korean media. It's a translation of Korean media. And the Korean media is not reporting this properly. And I think it's partially because they're also biased. There are forces behind them. Gordon mentioned the Chinese police station found in Seoul. Well, the person who was running it, he actually held when it was discovered, he held a press conference and he publicly stated to them that, hey, I know your bosses and I can't believe they're doing this to me because I did this favor for them. So you know that the CCP has infiltrated the media as well. And that is probably a major explanation as to why the truth is not coming out. So that is something that we need. So what the people should do in Korea is to continue to get the truth out, continue to dig up the truth, continue to speak out, continue to say it wherever they can, social media, wherever, so that people can know what the truth is. And in terms of what the U.S. can do, again, I talked about the shared values. Our shared values are freedom, rule of law, free and fair elections, and there's a list. But we have to show the world that that's what we are here to defend. So again, Koreans should continue to do that, and the U.S. should also speak out, and actually that's what we're doing here as well. So we need to focus on the shared values. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, David. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in thanking the panel for a tremendous Thank you.
Thank you so much to the panel and to you, Dr. Eberstadt, for hosting, or for moderating, rather. So I would like to bring up the students to speak, and you guys will speak one at a time for about 2 to 3 minutes at most, just because we are on a pretty tight schedule, but we definitely want to hear from you. So if the students can come up. Do we have students? I thought we did. Don't be afraid, students.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yewon Chung, a concerned Korean citizen who is studying right now at Johns Hopkins in PhD Department in Modern Language and Literature program. I am also a member of Truth Forum. Before coming to America, was at Seoul National University, and through that, I was part of Truth Forum and have fought for many different causes, including fighting against the pro-Hamas rallies inside Seoul National University. But now my heart is totally, wholly in South Korea and really concerned about the freedom of South Korea. South Korea is in the midst of the war. The political party leading this war is a leftist Democratic Party, also known as the Minju Party, which took the majority seats in the parliament through rigged elections, and since then they have drastically cut all the budgets of the crucial projects that the President Yoon Suk-yeol has been working for the welfare of our country, including illegal drug investigation, creating jobs for the young adults, supporting nuclear ecosystem, and many more. Then we have impeached President Yoon along with 28 other people appointed by the president for unacceptable reasons. Less than 10 hours ago, the final arguments regarding President Yoon's impeachment trial were held at the Constitutional Court of Republic of Korea. The final decision is to come out in mid-March, and like the majority of the Koreans who are fighting for our freedom, my heart is full of anxiety and concern. If President Yoon would get impeached, South Korea will be tossed into the hands of pro-China communist politicians of the Minju Party. For the past few months, we have in fact witnessed the tyranny of the Minju Party, stopping us from spreading the truth of the election fraud and its rigged system. The Minju Party have tried to censor our free speech by censoring our private messages of KakaoTalk and suing YouTubers for spreading the truth. And finally, they are even trying to pass a law of capturing people and sending them to mental asylum without medical procedure if accused as insane. It sounds very familiar, and we all know this very well, this tactic, as we stand here at the memorial of the victims of the communism. Even now, there are 63 young adults imprisoned for raising their voice and protesting on behalf of our country. It is truly sad to admit this, but South Korea has been deeply infiltrated by the communists, and this did not happen just a few months ago. This was a long-term project that the communists had planned out after the defeat in the Korean War. It is already a wide-known fact that Kim Il-sung has fostered communist leaders within South Korea through giving out scholarships. And these students who have received a scholarship have infiltrated into our legislation, judiciary, media, and creating and letting the North Korean and Chinese spies flourish within South Korea. The establishment of South Korea was a miracle in and of itself, and the fact that Korea has flourished as free democratic country is due to the US and Korea alliance and due to the deep friendship that US has shown us throughout these years. At this moment, we Koreans are praying and fighting with all our might to protect our costly bought freedom, yet we feel utterly helpless at the moment. We feel unheard. Mr. Gordon Chang has mentioned about the Chinese people infiltrated in police, and they're police without name tags. He is right, because I was there at the moment. I was back in Korea in January in front of the Seoul Western District Court fighting for President Yoon's illegal imprisonment and to be dismissed. But we were peacefully protesting, yet we were faced with violence from police. We were pushed with force and we were trampled under their feet. We truly need help before it's too late. We need help once more from our greatest ally and friend in stopping the communists who are striving to take away our freedom. I hope the United States can use its influence to dismiss President Yoon's impeachment before the Constitutional Court makes its final ruling in mid-March. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ji-Hye Yoon. It's a great honor to welcome you all to today's seminar. I want to sincerely thank each and one of you for your pursuit of truth and for your dedication to meaningful discussion today. The South Korea can be likened to a smaller version of the United States. President Syngman Rhee laid the foundation of our nation based on American values of freedom, democracy, market economy, and biblical worldview. However, today, we are confronted with a situation where socialist revolutionaries, influenced by postmodernism and Marxism, are exploiting democracy to infiltrate all filters of society. This situation mirrors that of the United States. Currently, South Korea faces a greater risk than Taiwan. China's covert infiltration and growing influence are becoming increasingly powerful. The biggest concern we must look at is their interference in elections. China has already conducted large-scale operations through fake media and by placing Chinese spies and ballot counters in Korea. The consequences have been very severe. Our remaining task is to dismantle the corrupt cartels influenced by China and North Korea. These cartels, entrenched in politics, education, media, economy, and religion, pose a dire threat to our future. Currently, Korea finds itself in a similar situation to the time when the Democratic Party attempted to impeach President Trump. Left-wing lawmakers are trying to block judicial proceedings against Lee Jae-myung, the leader of the opposition party, and are enacting severe legislative tyranny. The Democratic Party and others hold 192 out of 300 parliamentary seats, and with just 8 more, they can amend the Constitution. Although there are storms within our country, us, the future of South Korea, have not given up. Our generation is waking up, and we are here to be the salt and light of this earth. Thank you. We deeply love this country, the country of freedom, the United States of America. The United States was the first nation to send troops to South Korea during the Korean War, with major battles including the Battle of Nakdong River, Incheon Landing Operation, and Pyongyang Operation. Almost 2 million Americans participated and 40,000 Americans killed during the war. Korea and US alliance is not like any other alliance. It's built on the blood of our beloved soldiers. Koreans recognize and deeply appreciate their sacrifice. Their bravery and sacrifice are what laid the foundation for the freedom and prosperity that Korea enjoys today. We will forever honor their memory and stand unwaveringly with the United States in our shared commitment to peace, democracy, and lasting friendship. Until the day we liberate North Korea, and for forever, we will fight for you, and right alongside with you. Let's fight together. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name name is Joseph Lee, and Korean Lee Hon. I'm majoring the international studies in Korean University, and the freedom is by no means something we take for granted. In 1950, the sacrifice of American soldiers saved Korea from communism. Korea will always remember and be grateful. The movement for freedom has continued to this day in Korea. Actually, until last year, voices valuing freedom were mainly made up of elderly, like from 60 to 80. There was a few young people in Korea. But last December, conservative President Yoon declared the martial law, and it informed election fraud and awakened young people to the value of freedom. Many universities in Korea are raising their voices through declaration on the current situation of Korea to defend Korea's freedom from communism and election fraud. There has never been anything like this in the history of Republic of Korea. God is awakening the youth of the Republic of Korea now in the crisis. The youth of Korea will fight to the end with God and America. We go together. Thank you.
Hello, distinguished guests. My name is Min-Seop Kim, and I am currently pursuing a degree in education in Seoul National University. The wisdom of our predecessors who prioritized individual liberty, property right, and the sanctity of life has been instrumental in shaping the nations of the United States and the Republic of Korea as we know them today. However, South Korea now stands at a defining crossroads. The nation stands at a pivotal moment, forced to choose between safeguarding freedom, democracy, or yielding to the encroaching threat of totalitarianism and communism. In response to escalating threats, President Yoon Suk-yeol has declared martial law, an urgent measure to awake the nation to the realities at hand and to counter anti-state forces seeking to undermine our democracy. Distinguished conservatives, the current crisis in South Korea cannot be confronted alone. This is not merely a domestic challenge. It is part of a broader global struggle between authoritarian forces led by North Korea and China and the free world. The fall of South Korea would not mark the end of this struggle. Rather, it would set in motion further aggression, first toward Taiwan, then Japan, and ultimately a direct threat to the United States itself. Yet, I remain confident that if we stand united against the forces of oppression, we will prevail. Justice is on our side. Those who stand for freedom will ultimately trump. Thank you.
Make Korea great again. It's good to see patriots of America and Korea. My name is Yeon-soo, and I am the founder of Dreamers, North and South Young Adults Community, preparing for the reunification of Korean Peninsula. Before I begin my speech, I would like to give my special thanks to Mr. Gordon Chung for mentioning conservative South Koreans during CPAC speech. Because of you, people around the world were able to witness a powerful moment, a man waving the Save Korea flag, while I waved the American flag, shouting, "Fight, fight, fight!" Now, the world saw our unwavering determination to protect Korea from communism. Everyone here are the warrior of Korean War in 21st century. I want to share a story of my North Korean friends who are the victims of communism. I have a female friend who is very beautiful, tall, smart, and adventurous. She was temporarily separated from her mother during her escape from North Korea at the age of 18. During that short period, she became a victim of human trafficking and was sold to an old Chinese man 3 times her age. She eventually escaped to Korea with her mother while pregnant. This is the story of another Korean defector I know. During her escape from North Korea, she was trafficked and sold to a Chinese man. She was mistreated for giving birth to a daughter instead of a son. Later, she was reported by a neighbor, forcibly repatriated to North Korea, and sent to a political prison camp. While in prison, she was raped by a guard and became pregnant, and only to be subjected to a forced abortion without anesthesia. But what is even more remarkable is that, despite such horrific circumstances, she shared the gospel with 7 prisoners. Over a century ago, American missionaries came to Korea, and it was in North Korea's capital, Pyongyang, that the gospel first took root. American missionaries built schools, churches, hospitals, laying the foundation for the prosperous South Korea we enjoy today. Because of their dedication, South Korea became one of the fastest growing nations in the world, a place where Christianity shines brightly. Many young American soldiers who had never heard of our country fought on our soil to prevent communism and defend the freedom of Korea. The bond between our 2 nations goes beyond diplomacy. It is a relationship established by God, rooted in shared values of faith and liberty. My grandmother's older brother was a first class at the Korean Military Academy. After the outbreak of the Korean War, he was among the first to engage in combat and was killed in action. Recently, when I visited the Korean Military Academy and saw my grandfather's name engraved on the monument for the first class, I reaffirmed my determination to work even harder as a descendant of a war hero for the freedom of South Korea. In 2019, Communist Moon Jae-in forcibly repatriated 2 North Korean defectors through Panmunjom. According to the South Korean Constitution, North Korean territory is part of our land, and its people are our citizens. Even if they were criminals, they should have been tried under South Korean law. However, Moon prioritized appeasing Kim Jong-un over protecting North Korean citizens. As Christians, we cannot turn a blind eye to their pain. Hebrews 13:3 tells us, "Remember those in prison as though you were with them, and those who are mistreated as though you yourselves were suffering." We trust in God's plan, just as He led the Israelites out of Egypt. He will lead the people of North Korea to freedom. We will always be brave, and we will always be ready to fight, fight, fight. May God bless South Korea, may God bless the United States of America, and may His grace be with us all. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Donggan Kim from Truth Forum. Today, what I want to say is very simple. Pray for Korea. US-ROK alliance is forced in blood and sacrifice. More than 30,000 US soldiers died in Korean War. The sacrifice laid foundation of free Korea and democracy of Korea. Korea is now one of the most prosperous and free country in the world. But Korea is still fighting war against communism. But this war is not like before. Now, communism, this fight is more insidious. Communism now hides under the guise of culture, diplomacy, charity, and equality. It's very hard to find who we fight against. But good example is impeachment of President Yoon Suk-yeol. President Yoon fight against communism and fought for election integrity. But left-wing party in Korea doesn't like it and impeach him. Now it's time for pray for Korea. 3 years ago, when President Yoon elected, I was started to pray for President Trump because I knew that election of President Trump is so important for free world and for the value we share together, with the faith we share together. Now it's time for pray for Korea because this is what I want to ask American people pray for Korea because this is not just about one country. It's about fighting against communism. It's about moving freedom forward. It's about moving gospel forward. This is what our forefathers fought for and breathed for. Pray for Korea. President Trump said, fight, 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 but I want to say, pray, pray, pray. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ji-hae Yu, and I want to speak about the present situation in Korea. Nowadays, South Korea is facing a very serious crisis. Our President Yoon Suk-yeol, who has fought to protect liberal democracy of Korea, is now on the verge of impeachment. Since he declared martial law last December, the Democratic Party has called him a dictator and initiated impeachment procedures. The majority of the people did not realize the reason why he declared martial law. But now, his martial law has become an enlightenment and has awakened many people. It has been evident how the Democratic Party has tried to undermine our liberal democracy. For example, misusing impeachment, cut the essential national budgets, and made no efforts to investigate allegations of election fraud. Most importantly, young people are waking up. They are angry about the erosion of liberal democracy, election fraud, and the collapse of the rule of law. Anti-impeachment declarations are being made at many universities, and every weekend, so many people are pouring into the streets to pray for the recovering of Korea. The thefts and the destruction of democracy in Korean Peninsula is something that should never happen. The Republic of Korea was founded 70 years ago through the blood, sweat, and dedication of more than 1.7 million young American soldiers. We young Koreans have a responsibility to ensure their sacrifices and dedication are not in vain. Moreover, as they protected the freedom of Korea, we also have a responsibility to spread freedom to the northern part of the Korean Peninsula, where freedom still does not exist. Now it is time to stand together and fight for our freedom. The ROK-RS-US alliance is not just a military alliance, but a values alliance aimed at preserving the values of liberal democracy. For this reason, South Korea and USA must unite. Let's go together. Truth and justice will ultimately prevail. Thank you.
That's all the students we have. Thank you all. Oh, we have one more.
Hello, my name is Jian Kim, a member of Truth Forum. Despite the influence of surrounding communist countries, we were miraculously founded based on the spirit of American liberal democracy. And after World War II, we became the nation that most fiercely and faithfully upheld the spirit of liberal democracy among the newly born nations. The driving forces that allowed us to maintain liberal democracy for over 70 years are the strong Korea-US alliance and the unwavering patriotism of our people and God's grace. On the other hand, just 2 to 3 hours north of Seoul, the capital of South Korea, under the influence of communist nations, religious freedom and even the right to life are under threat, and the brutal violation of human rights is taking place. Even at this very moment, a Holocaust is happening there. President Yoon is now facing a great crisis as he strives to protect liberal democracy from these communist forces and free the people of North Korea. South Korea is the country that over 70 years ago, during the Korean War, so many young Americans and allied nations risked their lives to protect liberal democracy from communism. In this war, please join in praying and helping to rescue the people of North Korea from North Korean Holocaust. If the United States once again joins in protecting the Republic of Korea's liberal democracy and risking the people of the North, South Korea will prosper together as a stronger ally of the United States. Let my people go. Save Korea, make America great again. And to my people of North Korea, don't lose your hope. We will open the way for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, students. Very, very, very impactful, powerful remarks. I think everyone in the room felt it. Thank you so much for having the courage to come up here and speak your truth. And now I would like to invite Dr. Katie O to the podium to give remarks.
Thank you. I am the only obstacle before the lunch. So I prepared actually some remarks, but I will give my main text to Tara, and she can share with you. And I do not need to follow through this. First of all, I am really touched by the young students' testimony and listening to them. As a matter of fact, I think Korea's future is very bright. We are not in dark age at all. The main reason is that if the seniors who experienced, like me, I was born at the bloody baby during the Korean War, any of you experienced the hardship of the past, then naturally you become very, against communism and all these things. But all these generations, beautiful young youth, born after the Korea become affluent society, and yet they are really testifying here about the importance of freedom and democracy. So it actually, your testimonies and your speeches made me very much smile. Every morning I get up very early, around 4:30, and then my first thing is that checking the global news, because the time is very good time to read the Korean, Japan, China, and global news. And although I live in America after I married a fine American gentleman who proposed me when I was studying at Berkeley, my heart is with Koreans all the time. So I always read the newspaper. And
I get extremely angry when I read a simple news such as they are not respecting 태극기, they are not saluting, they are not even hoisting on a national day, they don't sing the national anthem. It made me very, very angry and also very sad. Because even though I live in Northern Virginia, 4 times a year, I proudly ask my tall husband to hoist the Korean 태극기, 3.1절, March 1st movement, and then the Veterans Day, June 6th, and then the Korean Independence Day, August 15th, and the National Foundation Day, October 3rd, which happened to be German Unification Day. What a beautiful coincidence. So I'm doing it, and yet the Koreans are rejecting it. And basically, as Tara, whom I really dearly loved, we are not family related, but she's like my younger sister. And her testimony tells you that Lee Jae-myung's posture is basically telling the truth. So let me say, democracy is not perfect, of course. You know, democracy has a lot of problems, but it's the best form of the government because it respects freedom, open society, open market, and all these things. Korea built a democracy in such a beautiful shape, and today Korean democracy is maybe, if America is sliding down to autocracy, Korean democracy is actually high, without talking about Lee Jae-myung. But that democracy is about to be ruined. So in a sense, your job is very important. Let me tell you one thing to the young people. You are doing really great job, but you know, the truth is not always in the minds of majority. In olden days, do you remember? The earth is there and the sun is circling, and truth was that earth is circling the sun. And the global warming and the entire globe and ocean is rising. I am a diver, and you go to under the ocean and you see the globe is warming. Evidence is telling you, but the stupid majority don't believe it. So you are still minority in Korea as a young people. So when you are fighting for the truth and justice and the right path toward the future of Korea, let me tell you, I encourage you to support each other, love each other through your friends and colleagues, and build solidarity, and don't lose your confidence, don't lose your conviction that the freedom and democracy, constitutional democracy is the best form of Korea. So for that matter, my speech is all cut it out, and I salute to the beautiful youth to testify today, made us smiling and very happy. Thank you.
Okay, big sigh. All I can say is wow. I repeat, what the students have testified here is very powerful. I hope this was an occasion for us to reveal some of the truth that has been hidden. And that we need to continue to do this. We need to focus on our shared values of freedom, rule of law, and we just have to continue to fight. Thank you.
Yes, first of all, panel, and then the activists from Korea.
Let me do a closing remark as an organizer. I missed the last PPT. Would you please?
Me?
Yeah. Brittany, would you please open the last PPT? I need to show you guys the last picture. How many of we have? How many do we have here? SNU alumni. SNU alumni. Yeah. Thank you. Not this one. My. Yeah. You know, this is the picture taken 2 weeks ago. This is the center of SNU, covered with the flag of South Korea and United States. As far as I understand, this is the historic first. In the very center of the radical socialism and radical ideas are coming from Seoul National University, 저는 예관학 캠퍼스입니다. This is the first time that we fly the national flag of South Korea and United States together. So, at the campus. So, change has started. New era is already started. So we need to make it together. And at this moment, we also claim to shut down Xi Jinping Library, which is in the right center of the Central Library of SNU. The existence of Xi Jinping Library is a deep insulting to all the victims of communism. So we need to stop it together. Truth will set us free, and truth shall prevail, and truth unite us. Thank you very much.
수박 가져와주세요.
I'm going to go ahead and move these. Excuse me one moment. Oh, and the little fuzzy thing. Oh yeah, I don't know whose fuzzy thing is. Okay. Well, this fuzzy thing.
의자가 4명밖에 없어가지고.
여기 없으면 앞에 앉아도 돼.
이거 좀 땡기죠.
그럼 아니면 뒤로다가 다.
안 돼. And we need chair. And some.
이거를 they want to sit on the 여기 앉을까?
Oh yeah.
여기 앉으시고.